This is Jesse Hensley.
This is Josh Turner.
And this is Chris Bow.
Welcome to Turn Down for What?
Welcome back to Turn Down for What? It's the first post-Christmas episode. How was everybody's Christmas?
It was tragic at the 49er game. You know, sadness occurred. It ensued. It was lonely and desolate afterwards. It was definitely a different vibe than the previous victories, you know, as I wandered the stadium before I left.
What's interesting is my fantasy team, I had to make a decision between starting Lamar Jackson and Brock Purdy.
Oh, no. What did you
That
do?
was my decision going into the week. I had both of them on my roster, and I chose Lamar.
Nice.
After the first quarter, I was like, man, I should have picked Brock, and then he threw 4 interceptions. I was like, nope, I'm good. I made the right choice.
So it's your fault. I'm blaming you for jinxing it with your pick of quarterback. You threw us to.
I still have McCaffrey in my lineup, and he's still got 100 yards and a touchdown, so I'm fine with that. But
he's a stud.
I was sad. Brock literally had the MVP right there, right in his hand, right there. And then I think that pretty much shut down that conversation for the year. But
I talked to McCaffrey and about the Lucid and trying to see if we could get him to pop on one day, but he doesn't have the Lucid anymore. That was a short-term deal when he first got to the Bay Area. He had a Lucid for a bit there, and no longer a Lucid owner. But hopefully he'll get back into an EV. He's thinking Tesla maybe, and then maybe we'll get him to join us one day.
Something cool to drive, and the exchange is that he has to come talk to us on the podcast.
Right. That's the life goals. We're gonna make that happen one day.
CMC on the podcast. That's the next step.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, Christmas, other than the 49ers, was relaxing. I actually was out of town. I went to Disney for a whole week with the kids, which was stressful.
I saw a picture with you and your family all in Christmas pajamas. Was that pre-Disney trip or was that?
We were outside the castle. Actually, there was a Christmas party, and Ashley, my wife, actually had our Christmas pajamas for Christmas, and actually pivoted and was like, let's do this at the Christmas party.
That's
so
great.
We went to Magic Kingdom and we walked around Magic Kingdom in pajamas, and it literally Florida all week was freezing cold. It was not freezing cold. That's an overstatement, but relatively for Florida, like the night times it was getting into the low 40s, and which for Florida, I mean, that's pretty darn chilly. And so I wore a jacket pretty much every night. And then my kids decided they wanted to go swimming in the pool, which they said was heated, but it was not heated to the extent it needed to be. And it was an experience, to say nonetheless. But we did. We actually wore pajamas to Magic Kingdom. Got a lot of comments.
That's great.
Anyways.
It's like 11 o'clock at night at a Walmart in East Tennessee. You're going to have those pajamas ready to go. So
Jesse went there. How was your Christmas, Jesse?
It was survived. Let's just say it that way. We survived Christmas this year. Obviously, we have a lot getting ready to happen and a lot we're preparing for. So it was good to kind of get this season out of the way. My mom's had some health issues we've been working with, and it was good to have the kids over to see her again. And I think it's the first time everybody got to get together since she's been having those problems. So it was always good to have family around, and my sister and her family, and my niece and her family. So rallying everybody around Mama was a good time, and letting the kids get with her since she's been in the hospital in and out for the last few months. So but yeah, that's what our time was, is just enjoying it with family.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what it's about, man. You get the family around. We did our big thing Christmas Eve because I was going to be at the game on Christmas Day. So my sister-in-law, the cousins, all that kind of stuff. Anytime you get family, especially when you got generational, man, you got grandma there, and I mean, you got the generations from all the way down to the grandkids. That's what doesn't get any better than that, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And our guest speaker today, Douglas, how was your?
Hey, it was fantastic. I mean, we've been down here in Tennessee for a temporary time. I'm allowed to work from home, which is a wonderful privilege, and for my wife to spend time with her mother. It's been tremendous down here. And so, of course, we spent time for Christmas and shared some gifts and shared some great food.
Absolutely. What part of Tennessee are you in? Just curious.
In Franklin, so just south of Nashville.
Yeah. Well, we're over in the hollers of East Tennessee. Me and Jesse are, and Chris is way out west, way out there somewhere.
We need to get some haulers
Yeah.
out here, man. Not enough haulers out in California. How do we get one of those? What makes a hauler? Like if I wanted to build a hauler community out here and
Get a bunch of barefoot people that have dated their cousin and put them in a trailer park, and then
we
you
are
have a
going to get in
hauler.
trouble. Edit that out.
And you need a hoot. You need a hoot and a holler.
And a hauler.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
They have to go together.
Yes.
That's great.
Anyways, now we digress. So let's talk about EVs, since that's the point of the podcast today.
Yeah.
It was
Get
good
around
to
to it eventually.
dialogue about Christmas and cousins, but here we are. So yeah, anyways, today we're going to basically be talking a little bit about one, Jesse has himself ordered now officially a Cybertruck. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Congratulations.
Talk a little bit about the upcoming developments that are coming to Ford vehicles, GM drivers, but then also diving into Douglas's experience recently with driving his vehicle with the current network. So point number one, Jesse, tell us about your Cybertruck. What did you get? When did you get the order? And what did you reserve?
So I received the order on December 19th at around 5 o'clock. And I ended up going with the Cyber Beast Foundation series. So it's going to be the tri-motor. Obviously it comes with the Watt Decor, the 35-inch tires, the light bar, premium accessories, base autopilot. So that's one thing that came up, is the base autopilot, not the better autopilot. I'm trying to figure out exactly what that is, because I remember when I did the original, I had put in for the better autopilot, the premium autopilot, I guess is what I was asking for. At that time,
FSD.
it was said,
Are you sure? I swear it comes with FSD in your extra money that you're paying for, right?
I thought so. I'm looking at the sheet that they sent me right now that says, "Thank you for your order," and it is showing base autopilot. So I'm kind of concerned about that one. It might be in there, and that's just all that they could do right now on this one. Lifetime premium connectivity. Now, I looked into that too. I only see that lifetime as 4 years. So they only plan on this truck being around, I guess, for 4 years. So again, that might be something that the term lifetime means 4 years. I don't know. So
it should mean lifetime.
It should be, yeah. So, and then under the lifetime, it also says full self-driving capability. So that's where I'm getting the base autopilot and the full self-driving is there a difference between the two? Because I know it has it. I just don't know why they have it on there twice.
Yeah, you can actually switch between them on the
okay.
main screen. You can switch between them. So it sounds like you've got FSD. It's going to be coming with the vehicle.
Oh, great. So that's what we got. They required $1,000 down. So we did that. I did not opt for the extended battery. I was sitting there looking at the screen for a good 10 minutes trying to decide whether or not I wanted it or not. I figured that I can always add it later.
I was like, it always be added later. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was a $500 down option, and then it's $16,000 for that additional mileage. If I want it later, great, but I really want the tent to go in the back of it so I can use this to go on vacation.
Tent.
Yeah. So that's really the big reason why I didn't get the extended batteries, because I wanted to use some of the accessories that come with it for camping and things like that to actually use this thing in the mountains. So
and you also get the universal wall connector, don't you? And the backup home system, which is huge, man. That's great.
Yep, up to $4,000 of total installation cost is what they'll cover. So if I have, and from what I understand, it's only going to cost about $1,500 to $2,000 at the most. If I have to run everything with new panels and everything in my area, you're looking at about $2,000. So they give you a credit of $4,000 to do all that, and it comes with all that equipment. Doesn't come with the battery, but obviously you can use your truck as that battery, so it's not that big a deal.
And that's actually exclusively a part of the Foundation series, correct, Jesse?
As far as I know, it is. Again, everybody's kind of going back and forth on what do you get for that $20,000 more than the regular. And for me, just your full self-driving is $16,000. So let's just say that's what you wanted and you got that on top of the Cyber Beast. You're already almost what the rest of it is. I don't know what the light bar is and its cost. I'm sure it's expensive. I know getting 35-inch tires for anything is going to be expensive. Then you have the headache of the rims and everything else. So I know that's going to be more than what that difference is. The white decor isn't that big a big deal, but the connectivity is also kind of a big deal there. So
That's a costly thing depending on what the word lifetime means.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it says premium, but they got two different types of connectivity. So, and the question there becomes too, can I use this because it's going to be probably it's probably going to be SpaceX. Now I have a SpaceX satellite system as well here at the house that I no longer use just because they upgraded my local and I was able to use it. But if that's the system that it goes off of, then I could easily see the ability of this truck having connectivity for the house as well. For when you plug it up.
Well, if it's like all the other Teslas, premium connectivity is based on the AT&T network. It's been around for a long time, so 4G, 5G, that's what it's going to be. So
I was going to simulate.
Sorry to tell you.
Well, they have talked about using on this truck. They've talked about being able to utilize Starlink. So I don't know if that's going to be the case on this one. The fact that it's using a lot of new stuff, I could easily see it being the first to use Starlink. And
would there
I'm
be
sure they would put that
premium
in
and
there
non-premium connectivity with Starlink? It seems like that's redundant terms. Speaking of the AT&T network, not the Starlink. I think would just be one speed, if you ask me, but I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, it's
You've
super
also-
exciting, man. Congrats.
I think it's really
Yeah,
interesting
good for
because
you.
you've seen for the last 3 weeks since the delivery event that they've done a lot of people in the Tesla groups and things have gotten their orders, but Elon basically had suggested in it, and a lot of what you've seen were all Texas and California orders.
Right.
And
Right.
you are a Tennessee-based order, and they were suggesting that the order banks wouldn't open up for non-Texas and California people until after the new year. So this was before the new year, like, a week ago, that
And
you're
there's a couple
invite for a Tennessee order. I think that you're at the very early aspect of getting non-Texas and California orders.
I think so too. Yeah. And
all of those initial ones were coming out to Texas and California residents. I saw a ton of them from California and a few from Texas. So, I mean, I'm curious how you stack up against non-Texas and California residents when it comes to order reservation timeframe, because getting it 3 weeks after the announcement event's pretty impressive as far as the actual order window.
yeah,
I think when
so
you
too.
get your VIN number, like let us know when you get your VIN number, and then you'll get a delivery date after that, and that's when it starts getting exciting, man. That's when...
Yeah. Right now it showed mid to late 2024 is kind of where it showed, and everybody's kind of complaining about that because they say that the 2-motor is earlier, so you're getting the 2-motor first.
Right.
Were you tempted to go 2-motor to get it sooner, or you really wanted that tri-motor?
I wanted it, but at the same time, I already have that truck. My F-150 would beat that truck in speed. It would beat it in range. Well, wouldn't beat it in range, but it's close in range. I basically have everything that truck had, except maybe a few things I like better. I like the front better. I like the fit and finish a little better on the Ford, but at the same time, if you're going to do it, that extra amount, I feel like would be worth it to have that speed and everything. And since we're going to be training, and utilizing our charging stations that we're building, to have the higher one would be good advertisement too. Well, plus it's faster. I mean, let's just cut
0 to 60 in 2.4. I mean, I'm actively looking forward to that. And I might admit that I was a proponent in pushing him to get the Cyber Beast. Whether affordability is in the window or not, whether or not it qualifies for the tax credit or not, 0 to 60 in 2.4 seconds is just for a truck is just gonna be fun. And Jesse's gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna enjoy it through him. So
what a great shot that'll be, though. You get the Lightning next to the Cybertruck at one of your charging stops, when you get going, or even when you just break ground, even, coming soon.
Just imagine a big old Power Up America logo slapped on the side of that Cybertruck. It's gonna get all the
Yep. And you're gonna have both cables, right? On yours, you're gonna have CCS and NACS. That's perfect, man.
As of right now, we will. Now there are other companies out there that have been growing, that as we get our awards in, if it looks like we need to switch to one of them because of the current company we're working with can't supply or something like that, we may have to go the other direction. But now that you're going to have the adapters and everybody are going to be working with both of them anyway, I don't think it's going to matter one way or the other, because everybody's going to have an adapter that's needed,
Right.
if you need to do that. So
Speaking of adapters,
Yeah, let's talk adapters.
Chris, talk to us about our news article today.
Yeah, so
Good
it was
segue, Jesse. Good segue.
good
I appreciate
segue,
that.
man.
Yeah.
Like you haven't missed a beat, man. It's good to have you back. You're right back on that bike, man. It's great little nugget coming out of the YouTube world. Place called Far West City Planning Commission out in Utah, who I'm sure has more views and clicks and can't figure out why their planning commission suddenly has, trending views on YouTube. But one little nugget about an hour and 6 minutes in, Tesla employee is there reporting out on a charging station going there, supercharger, and they're talking about the transition to NACS for Ford and GM, and the employee said end of February of next year. So that's the first time I think we've ever heard. And now that's circulated everywhere, a bunch of newspaper articles, a bunch of X and Facebook posts, all on this one planning commission. So, is that indicative of the entire country? Is that even accurate? Does it actually, get active by the end of February? I reached out to a couple of my friends over at Ford there and kind of tried to get a little nudge, and can I get a confirmation at all? And lips were sealed, so I couldn't get a denial or a confirmation, right?
Well, I mean, to speak to your point, just to provide clarity, if the audience is not fully aware, all F-150 Lightnings, Ford and all the GM vehicles are currently under the
Mach-E.
CCS systems.
Yeah.
All of those vehicles are CCS. In May, I believe it was, Ford came out with the announcement that they're transitioning to NACS, and the quote was that a NACS adapter would be available to Ford drivers at the beginning of 2024. And that was just a big open gray area. Who knows how they would deliver? There was no deadline set. And so fast forward to now, this conversation, this press release is indicative of the fact that they are going to respect the Q1, but that would be all of the Ford drivers like myself, like Jesse, like you, Chris, all of us getting an adapter potentially as soon as late February, which would open us up to use the supercharger network. Because as of now, you can go online and buy an adapter that works for slow charging, but when it comes to the supercharger network, there's nothing from my knowledge that's available for
That's correct.
for the Ford drivers to basically utilize that network. And so
there's a company called A to Z out in, I believe, Canada, that has some adapters that they're doing pre-orders for. And I actually had some side conversations with them. They were going to try to have me test one of their adapters out here at a Magic Dock station. But there's no way to release it. Like, there was no way to release the thing and use their adapter instead of the Magic. I tried every little thing to try to test theirs.
That ain't happening.
No, the only way you could really test it was some crazy like voodoo where you took like a CCS into a Tesla adapter, the Tesla adapter into their adapter, into my Lightning. So kind of using what, Doug's adapter and their adapter, putting them all together into the Lightning, that did work on a CCS. So physically the electrical connections were confirmed as functional in that way. But I asked them the same thing. I said, hey, they've been trying to get Tesla approval to be an approved adapter. And I said, hey, have you had any word on this? And they've got some NDAs and they can't say a whole bunch, but they sent me some screenshots of it, of the adapter being used at a supercharger where it is communicating. The supercharger and the software still aren't where you can do it, but they plugged it into a supercharger. The adapter communicated with the car, and then the car tells you on an error screen, hey, try to unplug it and plug it back in because I can't make payment. But the fact that even communicated with the car to that extent means that those physical connections seem viable. And now it's just a matter of, one, the Ford software has to be updated in GM. And then of course Tesla has to unlock it and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I think the big in is a big company like Ford, knowing, the relationship between Farley and Elon and stuff. I mean, they will get the appropriate communication steps done and into the software integration to allow those things to actually function the way that they should and deliver the high-speed power that is able to be delivered out of those stations. Obviously our truck still won't get over 175, but I would love it where when I plug up to a Tesla station, I'm getting 175 delivered. That way we're not, dealing with, reduction in power source, because that's the big issue across the board. And so with the adapter head, there's, and we'll talk about this in a minute. I mean, there's the ability to have slow charging abilities and to use what Tesla labels as a destination charger. What's the
Destination.
name?
Yeah. They have destination chargers. They have urban chargers though that I don't think will be supported. I think it's just going to be the V3 and V4. The urban chargers won't. Those are kind of front of restaurants and things.
All until NACS actually comes into the vehicle.
Into the vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so many questions with Ford too in terms of their software, because we know when we get our Lightning updates, you can see in the community where it's like, I'll get an update and then some people are like, my updates aren't working. Other people months later are getting the updates. I hope they do better at pushing whatever this update will be, required to make that work. And then that'll be a big question mark, right?
To go on a minor testimonial about Ford software, I had to take my vehicle in for the light bar recall.
Just did that myself. Yeah.
I took it in for the light bar recall. They were going to take it for the day. No big deal. Take it for the day, replace the light bar. They scheduled it 3 months in advance. So like I was ready to go. I dropped my truck off. When I dropped it off, they said, "Hey, there's a module update for the charging port that we need to do." And I said, "Okay, that's fine. I mean, that's a 15-minute fix. Just do that while you're here." And it was for like something with the battery charging module. And I had complained about, and I'd asked them to look at it, but like my vehicle would charge through my Pro Charger at home, but it kept faulting when it tried to precondition in the morning. And so like every morning it would be plugged in and I would try to get it preconditioned. And with where I'm located, there's frost and, obviously the frozen windows you're trying to defrost, and the preconditioning solves that. So it was kind of frustrating to have to manually start my car every morning. First world props. But
the frozen holler.
Yeah, frozen holler down here, but it'd be nice to be able to program it in where I leave the house to take my kids to school, and it should go. And so I said, "Hey, can you look at it, see like maybe this module will fix it?" They did the module update and it completely fried the charging port. Like they couldn't plug it in and it just kept faulting like over and over. Like it wouldn't take charge at all. And so they had to order another charge port, which then delayed like 4 days, and we were coming up on Christmas. So they got the charge port in not this last Friday before Christmas, but the Friday before that. And then realized that with attached to that, they had to get a whole new wiring harness attached to that. So they ordered that and they got that in last Tuesday. And then they took 5 days ripping apart all of the tech of my truck. And they said it was so much of an overhaul of an issue. And I'm curious if anybody's ever had that happen in the Lightning network. But I ended up not having my truck until Saturday. I got it back Saturday after being gone for almost 2 weeks. Because of the module frying the charging port, which I thought was really interesting. I don't know what happened, but something in Ford's software or something. I don't know if it fried the charge port or if the tech wasn't communicating with the charge port or whatever, but it created a massive issue with hundreds and thousands of dollars of Ford's time. It's all under warranty, but it's all of their time and effort that, they had to expend on that front. But there's a minor tangent attached to that software point. But yeah, nonetheless, a recent experience I had with the Ford tech that was curious.
Yeah, it makes you wish you could just, hey, if you're going to rip into it, just give me NACS. You're already in there.
Just go ahead and pre-install NACS right back in there. I don't think they have that authorization yet, but I'm curious though, like you're with that point though, if there will eventually be the opportunity that you could take your truck into the shop and they do what they did to my truck, but they do it with a new wiring harness and new charge port, and you could convert your Lightning to a NACS charger.
I don't think so. I think there's gonna be so much integrated into that when you're talking about NACS and the hardware and the software and the computers that drive it and all that stuff.
It seems like you could update the software and the hardware could be replaced, but I don't know if that's going to be too costly to actually do and just use an adapter. And You
Well,
could
and all
charge at a
back
Power
in
Up America station and have
testing.
both. So,
Right. That's awesome. Yeah.
Anyway,
but yeah,
so
Good
yeah,
times.
at the end of the day, you're probably the only person that this has happened to, and nobody really cares. So
That's
Oh,
true.
it was
drop us
just
a
yours.
comment. Drop us a comment in the YouTube chat and or in the comments section. Tell us if that's ever happened. But that is a tough thing, guys. So I just brought mine in for the light bar and the dash mat replacement, right? And the software update for the high voltage battery. I had my whole high voltage battery failed early on, and put it into crawl mode where you can only go 5 miles an hour. I had one of those dongles that you could plug in on app on your phone, and I could reset the error so I could get my power back to drive to the dealership, which a lot of people maybe don't know to do, and I wouldn't say is probably advisable when when you've got a high voltage battery failure. But a lot of people couldn't, and they were getting towed. And Ford's update gives you like 30, gets to go like 35, 40 miles an hour, still limits it, but enough that you can get to your dealer. So I was having all that done. And I had a couple little other squeaks and rattles I tried to have looked at, like a back rear speaker was blown. And my door panels were making me crazy because they were squeaking. I asked him to look at it. And that's where it went from a 1 day thing, like you were talking, Josh, and it turned into an 8 day thing over at the Ford dealer. They had to wait and confirm it and test it and
Did you get it
replace
back?
in order. I did. I got it back. It's funny you were saying Saturday. I got it back Friday night at 6 p.m. as the dealer was closing. And
I
and
could
it
have
took,
gotten mine back Friday evening right at the close.
yes.
When I could pick it up, but I was flying back in from out of town. So
Yeah. They messaged me at 5:15 and I was like, let's get
I'm on my way.
I
Here's
was
your
in this ice
Bronco
vehicle.
Sport back. Take it.
Yes, I had this Bronco Sport. God bless them, man. My wife had wanted a Bronco Sport to be looked at, so we tried it out for the week. It's on the Escape platform. It's body style she really likes. Size, it was what we would need for our next vehicle. But man, the getting back into that ice vehicle, that it was slow and noisy and just no, like that needs to be
I
an
was in an
EV.
Explorer my entire time away from my truck, and I got back in my truck, and I just felt so happy.
Oh, yes, literally. I needed to get back into the truck and it felt like my pleasant place to be, right?
I will say though, last night I was viewing some like a local drive-through Christmas light thing with my family, and behind me there was a Bronco, like a full
Full
Bronco,
size.
a full
Yeah.
size Bronco, but they had their parking lights on, and like the whole Bronco was
Lit up.
backlit yellow,
Yeah.
and it was
Looks
real.
good.
And they drove behind me the whole entire thing, and I wasn't looking at the Christmas lights. I spent the whole time just staring at them in the rearview mirror because that was a pretty sick
Yeah.
look, just having that whole Bronco backlit with
Well,
yellow. It was pretty.
and a Bronco's a legitimate kind of Jeep style, off-roady style. I mean, I could see an argument that, wouldn't necessarily electrify that thing for Ford.
A four-door
But
Bronco. I'm too big. I'm a big dude. I'm too big to really drive it. I got behind the wheel of one just to kind of toy around with it like 2 years ago when they first were coming out. But I respect the vibe of the Bronco. It's a sharp.
yeah,
The Bronco Sport, definite no for me. But the
it's
Bronco,
tiny for you.
the full size with the Sasquatch package, the big tires and stuff, that's a vibe I would do if I fit it.
I think my wife would
That's what
love
I had
it.
ordered. I had that ordered and
Oh, did
canceled
you?
it for the F-150 Lightning. Yeah.
Nice.
I actually had the Bronco Sasquatch ordered, and then my wife went with a full size SUV instead because
See,
we
and that's
so
what we need more variety, because all these SUVs that they call SUVs, they all kind of have that same hot hatchback looking style, Mach E that they call, ID4. All these things have that hatchback style look to them. The Model Y, they all have similar, right? And the Bronco, if you could electrify that thing, it'd be so much fun. And it's the same platform. You could do the Maverick, the Bronco, and the Escape all electrified on the same platform. And the biggest problems that I saw with it was like horribly slow. You hit the gas, it pauses, looks back at you. You want to do what? Fine. Then it makes a whole lot of noise about it. It's like when you ask your kids to clean up their room, right? It's not a lot of speed and it's a whole lot of noise and not a lot is happening. But all that is solved if you were to put that in an EV platform. You get your speed, you get your power, you get your quietness.
even the low end torque when it comes to like crawling and stuff off roading. I think that there's a space for that in the EV world.
Yeah.
Because you can get that
Rivian does fine.
power when it comes to doing some of those things without having to tune the vehicle accordingly.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I
So
think a lot of it too is they have to pay for the investments that's already been made. So
Yeah.
you don't want to compete with what you've already
your own
paid
product.
for, and then you got to let its timeline run out before you can upgrade it. So I would think in this case, you have that V6 that's in that Bronco. Let's wait until you have to replace that V6 to then electrify it, because then now you have your investment paid off enough to go to the next. But
I hope we see some of that variety with T3 coming out. Speaking of Tennessee, right out there in
Yep.
your neck of the woods with you guys, like, man, that'd be fun
Yeah.
to see some variety.
Yeah, we're actually working with an airport that is near that facility that I believe will be utilized by Ford to come into the area for one of our airport charging programs that would be utilized for aircraft as well. So that's one thing that hopefully we might be able to work with them on that. Obviously, when you look back at history of Ford, they have a interest in aircraft. They had the Ford Tri-Motor that very successful, although it wasn't utilized that often. Beautiful aircraft. And so you never know where it might go. You already have the technology for a vehicle. How hard is it to put it in the sky with the same batteries and some of that? So those are some of the questions that we're looking at with some of our teams we're working with on that side of it. But yeah, so we're close. But now the big thing now, though, is Douglas has been sitting over there not saying anything. He is here.
He's got an adapter that works today.
Yes.
He's not imagining into February, March for adapter fun. He's living adapter fun today.
He gets to do it
Tell
today,
us,
unfortunately.
tell us about what you drive and what your experience has been with what your current setup is.
All right. So driving a 2020 Model Y, and I picked up the CCS1 adapter from Tesla. There was another one made by Handshow and another one made by another third party. And I just know, okay, buy the Tesla one because it's going to work and you'll get warranty work. Let me tell you why. I hooked up to, when I first got it, found an EA charger close to my house in St. Peters, Missouri. That's my permanent residence. And they were offering free complimentary charging. I thought, hey, I'm always about finding the free DC fast chargers. You're going to hear this as a recurring theme. So I go plug in, and the first time I go, everything was great. And I stopped the charging on the car, and everything worked fine. The second time, I got into my old habit of unplugging, because that's what you can do with a supercharger. You just unplug, and, you hit the button, unplug it, everything's good. Well, the EA charger still thought a charging event was going on, and so it left the power on as I unplugged. My car tells me, hey, you're not supposed to do that. And the EA charger fried my inverter. It's called the PCS in my Tesla. That's what takes AC and makes it DC. So like when you hook up to a destination charger, L2, that's what does that conversion. It fried fried two of the three circuits. Each one does 16 amps. And it fried two of them. When I got home, all I could do was 16 amp charging on my wall connector. I knew something was wrong. I took it to Tesla. They said, yeah, it looks like your PCS is fried. And they replaced it under warranty, which was good, because I had the Tesla adapter there. Now, how all of that worked, it just told me, okay, just make sure that you turn off charging before you unplug. Okay, that's what it told me.
Interesting that the DC fried your AC component of your charging.
Well, remember that NACS uses for AC or DC, it uses the same connectors.
Yes, true.
And so this is exclusively an issue because you were using a CCS to NACS adapter, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the EA charger, even though I hit the button on the wand, it didn't recognize that as a stop charging event, which
there's a button on the thing. You got to hit the button on the unit.
But that's I hit the button on the plug.
But yeah,
I did.
It just with the inverter involved with it, the system wasn't updated enough to actually recognize that as the stop charging.
It was still push and charge. So anyhow, Tesla took care of that. That was my first great experience with adapters. So we moved down here to Franklin, Tennessee temporarily so my wife could spend time with her mother. It's been fantastic. And before we came down here, I was wondering, okay, where can I find free charging? And I was even just looking for L2, and I found about a third of the mile from the apartment complex where we live right now is Nissan North American headquarters. And they're made by BTC is the manufacturer, and they've got two of them in the visitor lot and two of them in the contractor lot. And three of the four will do 63 kilowatts, and the last one will do 90. Now, what they tell you is it does 180, but it's got two plugs. It's got CCS and it's got CHAdeMO, of course, for Nissan Leaf. And it's limited to 90 on each. And I mentioned that for a minute because that's what I've got to transition into Ford Charge that I'm going to be doing next. And so the experience there has been great to a point, but unfortunately, Nissan doesn't monitor these units. They're non-monitored. They're not on a network. The only place where you can keep track of them is on PlugShare, and hopefully people are leaving comments like I do. And it's been up and down, more down than up, but when it's available, it's great. And then I've got 24 L2 chargers over at Schneider Electric in their parking garage. And over in the, during the weekend, obviously not during the work day, because those are people that are going there expecting to charge during the day. That would be rude. But I can go there at night. I can go there during the weekend and get, it's 6 kilowatts. You know the drill. It's pretty slow. But recently,
bringing a picnic for that one, you just like camping out.
And it's a 9-minute walk from my apartment. It's no big deal. I drop it off and then I'll monitor it through the Tesla app, and it'll let me know when it's done. Well, recently, let's transition into Ford Charge, which is really what I want to talk about today. I wanted to go to Jasper, Indiana, my hometown, and spend some Christmas time with my family. Well, as I always do, I always check PlugShare to see if there's any new chargers around. I knew of some chargers there in Jasper. A friend of mine from high school, between the Hampton Inn and the Schnitzelbank restaurant, which, by the way, is a fantastic restaurant, by the way.
Shout out Schnitzelbank.
Schnitzelbank. Yeah, you look it up. They've got 2 destination chargers, and those are 48 amp. And then they've got a J1770 232 amp, and they're free to the public. You don't have to stay, you don't have to eat, but there's a lot of people that use them because they know they're there. They've been there since about 2015. So I knew about those, but I always check. And recently we had a V3 supercharger put in 20 miles away in Washington, Indiana. So I knew no matter what, I'd be good. But then I looked, and there was Ruxer Ford, and they've always had a listing there for their L2s. But then it showed, there's a different color icon on PlugShare when it's DC fast. Right. And it was that color. And I thought, whoa, what the heck? Because I've been watching for the Ford Charge network to start showing up. I mean, you got those chargers up in Michigan, Watt and Buzz, right? Yeah. And they were leaving them on for free, getting some feedback on them, how they're working. And I had done some research on the Rotunda website, which is the site that Model E dealers use to get their equipment. And I was able to see the 120 kilowatt and the 240 kilowatt units. And I thought, I wonder if they got some of those. And I looked in the details, and sure enough, they had just put them in December. And so then I knew, I got to try these out. Because the worst thing that happens, I get there 20% state of charge, 20 miles. Yeah, I can get to Washington, no problem if I have to charge there. So I tried out these new chargers. They had a 120 and a 240. Unfortunately, currently, just like the ones up in Michigan, the 240 unit is set up as 120 and 120, A and B, and that's the maximum it'll do. Although when you look at the manufacturer is Power Electronics, they're out of Spain. If you look at the details on the NC240SU, which is a standalone unit, it can do 240 on just one plug. But at this time, they're configured 120 and 120. by the display on the touchscreen. That's how you know. So it looked exactly the same between the 120 unit and the 240. So by mistake, I'm there at 20% state of charge. I hook into the 120, but I can verify that that unit will give you 120 if you're the only person hooked up. Now you get somebody else, then it's going to share, just like a version 2 supercharger does. But then one of the owners came out and said, "Hey, wanted to know your experience today and how this is working. We just put these in; they're free." And so we talked for a while. I recorded it. You can watch it on X. I mean, just at Life Middie, Middie. That was the name of my old Model 3. You can go ahead and watch the video. And he also revealed some interesting details. He said that the Ford Charge chargers were going to show up in the future on Tesla's navigation, which blew my mind. I didn't expect that. But I haven't seen that happen yet. But I got a feeling we've got something coming up in 2024 here where we're going to see the Ford Charge network. And how do I know Ford Charge? Because on the receipt display, it literally says receipt, go to fordcharge.cc/receipt. And I went out there and sure enough, you can get a receipt, although none of it's hooked up yet. The phone number for support is 000-1234567. You got links that don't work, but it's there and it's got to be coming really soon. So I'm really excited for the Ford community and for the rest of EVs, hashtag EV Owners United, get that in there. I'm really excited because we're going to start seeing these Ford Chargers showing up at dealerships like the one in my hometown of Jasper, Indiana. So it's coming. It's going to be an exciting 2024.
When I went and took my truck to the dealership and all that, I was asking about a few things, and they were like, well, our electrical contractors are here running, and she pointed at all the lines that they were running to put the network in. But it's something that we talked about, I think 2 months ago, was this whole issue with Ford and their dealers and the head-to-head on you can't deal with the EV program if you don't install the chargers and
right
this whole thing. But I think over 50% of dealerships are putting in chargers, and so that charge network will organically grow. And ours locally in my dealership in Johnson City is getting that network. They're in the middle of installing. I don't know what levels and things that they'll have, but they will have the supercharger because they had a level 2 like wall charger basically there.
Right.
That was available when I bought my truck almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. But that's something that, but now they're actually getting that level 3 free solution, which will be nice because that place is, it's not a 9-minute walk or anything, but it's from here to it's like a 5-minute drive. And so if it's that can be a nice free source. But that's something that with Ford and Tesla's handshake that they've been doing with their relationship, and with the fact that I think with the 4 people I spoke with, we were kind of making some hints, but there was a suggestion that Farley and Elon communicate regularly. I think that that's something that there's going to be some things and synergies between the two, with NACS being introduced into the system, but then the Ford network opening up to Tesla. I think that in the next 24 months, we're going to see huge evolution of the charging network across the board, period.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Tesla's already dominated, the charging network, but the CCS market with the NEVI program is going to gigantically increase that network. Companies like ourselves with Power Up, we're going to include NACS chargers because, obviously that's the future of the industry. But I think the charging network's going to improve, but also like we talked about a few weeks ago, the amount of vehicles coming online, especially in 2025, where a lot of these deadlines, which will be ordering and delivering late next year, early the following, there's so many different vehicles coming online. NACS is getting introduced. All these chargers are coming online. I think that there's a huge surge coming to that market in the 24-month range.
Yeah, and I'm really excited.
It's going to be a lot of fun when you start to see these networks merge and be available to each other. And I think obviously the big challenge will be, can everybody be as reliable as Tesla has proven to be? And I know I talked to my dealer and they're getting two of these publicly facing and one that's in their shop area for these DC chargers. They're going through the infrastructure right now, like you were saying, Josh, of getting all the that was a big part of it. In fact, I think they said the chargers themselves were like, 100 plus each. But the infrastructure was closer to, five to 600,000, which I'm
Yeah.
sure you guys experienced too, trying
I
to.
can tell you on our end, just the transformers are 24 months booked out, and they cost just a transformer costs sometimes 50 grand.
Yeah.
The
That's
transformer,
whether it's an Autobot or Decepticon. Both of them are that expensive. So.
Right.
but that's not including running the three phase from wherever it's at. And if it's long distance, that can be very costly to run three phase. We are partnered with a company called Edge Energy, which actually has done some single phase to three phase outputting to where you can actually get with their solution, you can get single phase to produce 150 kW out of a charger. But that's something that like those improvements, like you could see multiple hundreds of thousands. One of the stations we quoted was about half a mile from the nearest three phase tap, and it was going to be almost 100 grand with the line run and with the transformer just to get the power to site, not including panel upgrades and otherwise to get that incorporated. So the big issue that you have is a level 2 charger can cost, for commercial level 2 charger, the unit costs 15 grand, but then you can plug it into most traditional panel boxes and make it work with a 100 amp charger or whatever, a 100 amp breaker or whatever. But when you deal with a level 3 charger, it is so much power coming through that you have to have three phase, you have to have specific transformers, rectifiers, whatever the case may be. And one supercharger, like the ones that we're dealing with the appropriate rectifier, if they're all built in, are going to cost 150 to 200 grand for the charging station. And that's not including the cost of actually installing one single unit. So that's why you don't see this massive network having developed so quickly until the federal funds have awarded it. But that's something that obviously we're at the precipice of seeing a lot of those funds push out stations.
Yeah, and
So-
some of that stuff holds back some of what Tesla tries to do. There's supercharger sites that'll sit there for months, and Tesla's already done all of their stuff, and they're waiting on a transformer, or they're waiting on a feed to get there.
Interconnection from the utility company, right? All permission
Yeah.
to operate, all those things. Yeah. And I think it's like early on, you're able to catch these things for free because they're so early. Like you said, the receipt doesn't even have the numbers on them yet. But when those go live, they're gonna charge once they go live, and it was really cool
it ain't gonna stay free for
Right,
long.
right.
No.
You have to recoup your money on a $250,000 of infrastructure for a Ford. Let's just assume it's $250,000. You have to recoup your funds somehow.
My GM out here at my local dealer was saying he'll be lucky to break even. It's all that they're investing in there. If they ever break even, that would be
and that's
amazing.
what Bruxer Ford said too. They said, we're not in this to make money, and they've already got 2 more spots already pre-made for 2 more chargers. So I'm thinking they're an elite dealer, because I don't think a certified dealer would have to do that.
It's smart that they do that, though. And I've seen, in fact, it was funny because that was exactly what was on the planning commission for that Far West City plan. And they talked about how they're going to start with, I think, like 8 superchargers, but they had exactly what you said. They had already laid out and put all the infrastructure in. So eventually they can expand it out to, I think, 16. So obviously much smaller scale when you're talking 2 to 4 from a Ford dealer, but nonetheless smart. If you're already going to tear all that up, and you're going to get all that in there, and you go through all the permitting.
You don't want to rip up concrete after the fact.
Nope.
Get it all done later.
No.
We are doing the same thing with ours too. So we have at least 2 more locations on our sites, but that obviously we're going to design it to where we can expand into that area. We're going to expand potential developments where we could do hydrogen on the facilities if we need to do that as well. And going back to the incentives. So you said you're from Missouri. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So in Missouri, they have not done the awards yet. It looks like they're going to be adding 8 brand new charging stations. They are going to upgrade 16 that are charge points, a couple Electrify Americas, some other groups, a Blink that's up there. 16 of them are getting updated, and it appears like you have 8 that are now built. So when you look at the 50-mile window across the state, everything except the upper right-hand corner is, and one area in the lower middle looks like they're going to be covered. So it's
That's
definitely
awesome.
going to make a big impact. And now you're looking at 25 or 30 level 3 charging systems that are at least 100 kVW to start with, and
Jesse,
that makes a big impact.
Are these usually is what Doug saw kind of the traditional way these things work and the way they work for you guys, where the machine is capable of a certain amount, but then if you've got 2 plugs being shared, it's going to split that? Or are yours going to do that?
Yeah.
The federal requirement is that it outputs 150, and we will have 2 heads, but only one can get used at a time. And
so yours will do 150.
150. Yeah. But the charging station like Tritium, who we've quoted for our initial project in Tennessee, their units were originally 150 units, but they had to, 1, make it Buy America compliant, so they upgraded some parts, but 2, they had to deaden 1 line at a time because of the fact that like their original design was 2 ports, and we actually used one of them, but when you plug 2 vehicles in, it's 75 each. And so when you deal with the NEVI compliance, you have to have 150 output. And so they basically made it to where only 1 port at a time was active, because if you made both available, that's the case. We will, on one of our stations, which we're incorporating with an airport, we'll have actually a 400 unit that will split to be 200 outputs. And so you can get up to 400 on a single, and 2 vehicles off the same machine will split to 200, which is still high power output.
And I think that's where a lot of people are building. There's a couple companies out there, and I talked to one this past week that have a 300 unit, and it does 2 150s. That is NEVI compliant. So at that point, you have 1 machine between. You only have to have 2 systems set up, and your 4 cars charging at one time, and it's compliant. So they have those, but if you have the capability of 300 and you're the only car there, where you're going to charge at 300.
Well, and I think it's interesting because, and maybe you can confirm this, Doug, I've seen posts on Facebook where somebody will even though Tesla has only 1 plug per supercharger, I believe 2 superchargers side by side share, because I've seen people where
that's for version 2. Yeah. So for just
version 2.
Just version 2 superchargers, they'll share. And so it's always etiquette, to see 1A, 1B. Leave a space. And version 3, that's not the case. It'll share across all of them. Now, if they're all in use, it'll throttle across all of them. So it'll manage that automatically. V4 is going to work exactly the same way. And I think, with V4, we'll see those higher charging speeds even more. The thing I wanted to leave with is that what I'm excited about what Ford is doing with Ford Charge is that I think this has just been totally missed by the mainstream media, that Ford is building up their own dedicated charging network. And I'm excited about that. Why? Because it's not a walled garden. They are allowing it for all EVs from the get-go. I'm looking forward to Ford taking those 240s, because power electronics has that capability. You can run 240 on just one of the 2 plugs, or 120 if both are in use. So I'm looking forward. Hopefully that's some of the feedback that Ford has gotten from users on the 240 units. The 120, it'll do a full 120 on one side. As soon as you put another car on it, it'll split and do 60-60. But I'm hopeful that we'll see that.
Robert from Ford was on X and made a comment in there that it's supposed to eventually, when it's all done and programmed right, that the 240 will do a 240, a true 240.
Yeah.
Only one is in use, and split it. I know that one you saw wasn't set up that way, but as they get it figured out, it will do that. And what was interesting,
can't wait.
You couldn't even tell the difference really, unless you looked at the actual number on the side. You actually went and looked at the serial number on the side and could see. But before that, they're identical, right? They look the same. So you really got to look.
Well, I went back to my videos and I felt so stupid. Okay. Because the 240 is a little higher. Okay. So if you look at the cabinet itself, because it's got more room for more equipment, right? It's got more modules. But
got
the
it.
thing was, the screens were exactly the same. A
Yep.
and B on both of them said 120, 120. So yeah, it was confusing.
It's the,
Great.
I mean,
But
yeah,
okay.
inside of all these units, most of them have individual module packs that
Yes.
will output, and you can
Expand it.
remove 3, add 4, and a lot of them have some dead space to add additional modules,
Right.
About
which will
25
increase
grand
your
per
power
module.
output. But then when it comes to delivering to vehicles, it's all really just software and making sure that it has the ability to output. Because if it can output to 2 vehicles at 240, it can output to 1. That's just a software
Yeah.
update that needs to happen, which is just probably the way that it was programmed when it was created. But I'm sure that
Exactly.
can be with some software updates.
Yeah.
Yeah,
one
and final
thing-
word on Ford Charge. It was a great experience. I just plugged in. Yeah, it's free right now, so I didn't have to do any payment. I didn't even have to touch the screen at all. Of course, in the future, I'm sure for Ford vehicles, that's going to be plug and charge.
Plug and
I
charge,
can't
yeah.
imagine it not be, right? And for Tesla vehicles, if there's a NACS connector, we'll see if that's provided. I don't know, but I'm really excited about Ford Charge. It's going to be a real winner. It's a dark horse in the charging community right
We
now.
do need to have a discussion about that. I actually turned plug and charge off of mine because you don't get the
Pricing.
EA discounts without that.
Gotcha.
Much using the supercharger network. It'd be nice for Electrified America to have an integration with Ford that you can link your account and you get the discounts, because you pay $5 a month and you save $20 a charge when it comes to those rate differences. I mean, that's just what you have to. But
Unless you're going
with
back and forth to
with
DC.
plug and play, it's great and all, but I had plug and play for my free kilowatts that I got when I bought my truck, and then everything since has been manual.
Same.
Because the plug and charge doesn't factor in the discounts with EA. But
The only thing I'm going to add is that little bit of courtesy that you would do when you have a Tesla next to another Tesla, by leaving that space, kind of like what you would do at a theater or urinal, for those who
Yeah,
The bathroom rules, right?
That's
but
right.
that's something that I had no clue about. And then also the whole deal of stopping, and if you're waiting to use one of the 4, you make sure you know who is next in line, even if you can't get to it. All of those etiquettes need to probably be documented somewhere, so everybody knows how you're supposed to act when you get to a charging station.
Jesse dealt with one. There was an EA station that was full, and he was waiting, and somebody backed out, and somebody else new came in and pulled in before Jesse could get into it. And it's like there must be a queue system, appropriate queue system of look around for other EV drivers that could be waiting before you take the spot of a full charger kind of thing. But yeah.
It's fun.
I'll have to forward to you guys. We did a 12 key things about EV charging etiquette. We did an X space on it. We built it up in an evening, and I'll have to forward you that document. Nobody uses it, but it does exist.
We could share it. We could share
I'm
it
not
on
post it at the site,
We can share it on the TDFW socials. So
Turned down for what? Thanks for joining us, man. Great story. Love that you shared it. What was your X handle and your YouTube, real quick, before you go?
All right, so X handle is Life Middie, Middie. That was the name of my Model 3. Of course, now I'm driving Middie, Middy for a Model Y. So yeah, and that's where you can get a hold of me. And also, if you go on Apple Podcasts, look for Life with Middie, our Tesla experiences, and you can get my podcast, which I am not on the content treadmill. So that's why I do episodes like once a month or something, but they're usually worth listening to.
Yeah. Awesome stuff.
absolutely. And for our listeners, once again, we are TDFW Podcast on X and on all the other platforms. So great talking with you, Douglas. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Look forward to future conversations. We will resume next week. Hope everybody had a good Christmas. And
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Ooh, this is our last episode of the year.
See you next year, right? See you on the other
See you
side.
next year, everyone.